Ms. Walsh, the county administrator, stepped forward. She looked like the kind of woman who ate HOA presidents for breakfast. Mrs. Whitmore, can you show me where in your bylaws it states you have the authority to unilaterally deny residents access to common areas they pay for? Karen's confidence wavered for just a moment. Then she lifted her chin. Bylaw 47C, subsection 12. Emergency closure powers. Mrs. Henderson, who had been quietly reviewing a different set of documents, cleared her throat. Karen, dear, I have a copy of the actual filed bylaws from the county clerk's office. There is no bylaw 47C. The world seemed to tilt slightly. What? There are only 32 bylaws total, Mrs. Henderson continued gently. And none of them give the HOA president unilateral power to close facilities without a board vote. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But I have them right here. She held up her laminated papers. Ms. Walsh took the documents and scanned them quickly. Mrs. Whitmore, these appear to be, well, they look like something you typed up yourself. They're not legally filed documents. Of course I typed them up. Karen's voice was getting shrill again. I'm the president. I write the bylaws. Officer Martinez stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Ma'am, you don't write the bylaws. The community votes on them, and they have to be filed with the county. According to our records, your most recent filed bylaws are from 2019. David Chen spoke for the first time since the officials arrived. Karen, did you really think you could just make up rules and expect everyone to follow them? I didn't make them up. Karen protested, but even as the words left her mouth, she realized how they sounded. I updated them. For the good of the community. Ms. Walsh looked at her with something approaching pity. Mrs. Whitmore, updating bylaws requires a community vote. You can't just decide to change the rules because you don't like how people are using the pool. The gathered residents were silent, watching this conversation unfold like spectators at a tennis match. Karen could feel their eyes on her, could sense their satisfaction at seeing her brought down. But she wasn't done yet. Fine, Karen said, her voice taking on a dangerous edge. Maybe my updated bylaws aren't technically filed yet, but I still have emergency closure powers as HOA president. Actually, Mrs. Henderson said quietly, you don't. All eyes turned to the elderly woman, who looked apologetic but determined. Karen, I reviewed the county records. You were elected as an interim president when Mrs. Patterson moved. But according to the actual bylaws, interim positions can only last 60 days without a community vote. Karen felt the blood drain from her face. What are you saying? You stopped being HOA president 6 weeks ago. Mrs. Henderson explained. Your authority expired, and you just never called for new elections. The silence that followed was deafening. Karen looked around at the faces surrounding her, some sympathetic, some triumphant, but all of them watching her carefully constructed authority crumble in real time. Officer Martinez cleared his throat. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to need you to unlock that pool gate. No. The word came out before Karen could stop it. Everyone stared at her. No, Ms. Walsh repeated. Karen's mind was racing. If she wasn't HOA president, if her bylaws weren't real, if everything she'd built her identity around for the past months was an illusion, then what was left? I need to see proof, Karen stammered. I need to see the actual documentation. This could all be a mistake. David Chen pulled out his phone. Karen, I've got the county clerk on speed dial. Would you like me to have them fax over the bylaws right now? This is harassment. Karen's voice cracked. You're all ganging up on me because you don't like that someone finally tried to bring order to this place. Officer Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, I need you to unlock the pool gate. If you don't, I'll have to cite you for interfering with residents' legal access to their property. Karen looked at the padlock, then at the crowd, then back at Officer Martinez. Her entire worldview was collapsing, but she couldn't seem to stop digging herself deeper. And what if I refuse? Then I'll have to arrest you for criminal trespass and obstruction. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Karen realized, with crystal clarity, that she had reached a crossroads. She could unlock the gate, apologize, and try to salvage some dignity, or she could double down and see just how far this rabbit hole went. She thought about her pristine townhouse, her perfectly organized life, her desperate need to be in control of something, anything, in a world that seemed increasingly chaotic. Karen lifted her chin and met Officer Martinez's eyes. "I want to see a warrant." Tommy Chen, who had been watching this adult drama unfold with the fascination of a child, tugged on his father's shirt. "Dad, is the pool lady going to jail?" David looked down at his son, then back at Karen, who was standing defiantly beside her padlocked gate, like a general defending a lost cause. "I don't know, buddy," he said quietly, "but I think she's about to find out." Officer Martinez reached for his handcuffs, his expression more sad than angry. "Mrs. Whitmore, you're under arrest for criminal trespass and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Karen caught sight of her reflection in the pool's surface, a middle-aged woman in a blazer and bathrobe, being arrested over a community pool, her carefully constructed authority revealed as nothing more than laminated delusions. But even as Officer Martinez led her toward the police car, even as her neighbors watched from their windows and Tommy Chen asked innocent questions about grown-up consequences, Karen couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Because somewhere in the back of her mind, a new plan was already forming. And next time she would be ready. Next time, she would make sure the bylaws were real. "Not indefinitely," Karen said, her voice taking on a sickeningly sweet tone. "Just until everyone starts following the rules. The proper rules." She began walking back toward her townhouse, her fuzzy slippers leaving wet marks on the concrete path. "I'll be posting the new pool regulations on everyone's door by noon. Pool access will be by appointment only, with a 48-hour advance notice requirement." "Appointment," Mrs. Henderson called after her. "For swimming?" "For supervise swimming," Karen called back, "with proper documentation of health certificates, insurance waivers, and proof of shower completion." David looked at his son, who was now wrapped in a towel and looking thoroughly confused by the adult world. "Tommy, go get dried off. We need to make some phone calls." As the crowd dispersed, muttering among themselves, Karen reached her front door and paused. She could feel their eyes on her back, could hear the whispered conversation starting. But this was necessary. Someone had to maintain order. Someone had to protect property values. Someone had to be the bad guy. She unlocked her door and stepped inside, immediately beginning to draft what she mentally titled the new pool protocols. She had a laminating machine, a color printer, and enough righteous indignation to fuel a small revolution. What she didn't have was the slightest idea that David Chen was a city council member's chief of staff. Mrs. Henderson was a retired legal secretary who knew municipal law inside and out, and Mr. Patel was currently on hold with the county commissioner's office. By 10 a.m., Karen had printed 47 copies of her new pool rules. By 10:15, she was taping them to every front door in the complex. By 10:30, 3 different residents had photographed the rules and sent them to local news outlets. By 11 a.m., Karen was about to discover that being right and being legal were two very different things. The first sign of trouble came when she spotted David Chen standing by the pool gate, talking animatedly on his phone while pointing at her newly installed padlock. The second sign was when Mrs. Henderson appeared beside him, carrying what looked suspiciously like legal documents. The third sign was the sound of sirens in the distance. Karen peered through her kitchen window, her coffee mug trembling slightly in her hands. This was fine. Everything was under control. She was the HOA president. She had every right to maintain community standards. So why did she suddenly feel like she was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between authority and power? The first police car pulled into the Willowbrook Estates parking lot at exactly 11:43 a.m., followed by a second car and what appeared to be a county official's vehicle. Karen watched from her window as Officer Martinez stepped out, adjusted his belt, and walked directly toward the pool area where a crowd of residents had gathered. Karen's phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown, but she answered anyway, hoping it might be someone calling to support her position. "Ma'am, This is Officer Martinez with the County Sheriff's Department. I'm here regarding a complaint about the community pool. Are you the HOA president? Karen's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her voice steady. Yes, officer. I'm Karen Whitmore. I assume this is about the temporary pool closure due to health concerns. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come down to the pool area. We have some questions about the legality of your actions. The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, then at her reflection in the kitchen window. Her hair was still in curlers from her morning routine, and her hot pink bathrobe suddenly seemed less authoritative and more ridiculous. But she was right. She had to be right. Karen threw on a blazer over her bathrobe, grabbed her laminated bylaws, and marched outside with all the confidence she could muster. The walk to the pool felt like a mile, even though it was barely 100 yards. Officer Martinez was a tall man with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who dealt with community disputes before. Standing beside him was David Chen, Mrs. Henderson, and a woman in a business suit who Karen didn't recognize. Mrs. Whitmore? Officer Martinez approached her with his notebook out. I'm Officer Martinez. This is County Administrator Sarah Walsh. We've received several complaints about the pool closure. Complaints? Karen clutched her bylaws tighter. Officer, I'm the HOA president. I have the legal authority to close community facilities in case of health emergencies. Karen Whitmore stood on her manicured lawn at 6:47 am, wearing a hot pink bathrobe and fuzzy slippers, screaming at the top of her lungs. "Get of my POL," she shrieked, waving a laminated copy of the HOA bylaws like a battle flag. The object of her fury, 8-year-old Tommy Chen, who was doing a perfect cannonball into what Karen considered her community pool. The splash soaked 3 elderly residents who were doing their morning water aerobics. Mrs. Henderson, the 75-year-old former librarian, looked up with confusion. Karen, dear, it's the community pool. We all pay for. Karen's voice cracked as she marched toward the pool gate, her fuzzy slippers squelching against the wet concrete. I pay twice what you people pay in HOA fees, because I'm the board president. That makes this my pool. She fumbled with an enormous ring of keys, muttering about freeloaders and property values, while Tommy's father, David Chen, jogged over in his workout gear. Excuse me, what's the problem here? David asked, his voice calm but firm. Karen whipped around, her blonde highlights catching the morning sun like a warning beacon. The problem, sir, is that your spawn is contaminating my pool without permission. Contaminating? David's eyebrows shot up. He's swimming in the community pool that we pay for. Not anymore, Karen declared triumphantly, finally locating the correct key. She slammed a heavy padlock onto the gate with the satisfaction of a medieval jailer. Pools closed until further notice. Tommy stood waist-deep in the water, looking confused. But I just got in. Out. Karen pointed dramatically toward the exit. Everyone out. This is an emergency closure due to. 2. She glanced around wildly, her eyes landing on a small leaf floating near the pool's edge. Contamination. Yes. Biological hazard. Mrs. Henderson slowly made her way toward the pool steps. Karen, there's one leaf. Mrs. Henderson, please don't make me call the authorities. Karen interrupted, pulling out her bedazzled phone case. I have the police on speed dial. David Chen crossed his arms. You're seriously going to lock the entire community out of their own pool because you don't want my son swimming? It's not about your son specifically, Karen said, though her eyes darted nervously toward Tommy, who was now floating on his back, completely ignoring the drama. It's about proper protocols, order, the rules that keep this community from descending into chaos. She marched over to a nearby poolside table and began spreading out laminated documents like a general planning a military campaign. According to HOA Bylaw 47C, subsection 12, the board president has emergency powers to close community amenities in case of health hazards. What health hazard? David demanded. Karen gestured wildly at the single floating leaf. That could be carrying diseases. Parasites. West Nile virus. It's a maple leaf. a potentially infected maple leaf. The small crowd of morning swimmers began to gather, creating a semicircle around Karen's impromptu podium. Mr. Patel, who lived in the corner unit, shook his head. Karen, this is ridiculous. I've been swimming here for 6 years. 6 years of breaking the rules. Karen slammed her hand down on the table, causing her laminated papers to scatter in the breeze. 6 years of treating this place like it's some kind of free-for-all public pool. She began chasing the flying papers, her fuzzy slippers providing zero traction on the wet concrete. Do you people have any idea what property values mean? Do you understand that when I moved here, this was a premium community? Tommy finally climbed out of the pool, water dripping from his swim trunks. Dad, why is the angry lady so mad about swimming? Some people have forgotten how to have fun, buddy, David said, loud enough for Karen to hear while she attempted to rescue a soggy bylaw document from a pool skimmer. Fun? Karen's voice pitched higher. Freeman. This isn't summer camp, Mr. Chen. This is Willowbrook Estates, a carefully curated residential community with standards. She finally managed to collect most of her papers, holding them against her chest like armor. And those standards are what separate us from the chaos of the outside world. David glanced around at the confused residents, most of whom were now shivering in their wet swimwear. You know what? Keep your pool locked. We'll see what the other board members think about this. The other board members. Karen laughed, but it sounded more like a cackle. Mr. Chen, I am the board. Mrs. Patterson moved to Florida last month, and Mr. Williams is in the hospital with his hip replacement. Until we hold elections next spring, I am the sole decision-maker for this community. The weight of this revelation settled over the crowd like a dark cloud. David's jaw tightened. So you're telling me you can just lock us out of facilities we pay for indefinitely?